The Marine Canvas Training Institute presents its video classroom series. This tape shows the Marine Canvas business operator how to estimate a typical marine canvas job using Don Wedge's traditional manual method and the Institute's new computer program. Now here's the Marine Canvas Training Institute's president, Don Wedge.
Today we're going to talk about estimating canvas products for boats. Hopefully by the end of this discussion you'll be able to go out and make an intelligent estimate for all of the canvas products that you would ever have to fabricate for a boat. We have a system that we want to use, and so before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to estimate, I'd like to spend a couple of minutes on the paperwork that we use to do this. What I have here in front of me is what we call an estimate contract. I'm a person that doesn't like a whole lot of paperwork, so over the last 20 years we've come up with a three-part contract that has worked very well to save us a lot of time and a lot of effort, and also to make sure that we get our money for doing the job. You'll notice in the contract that we have a place to put the customer's name, address, and phone number, and on the right-hand side we have a place to put in the kind of a boat, the kind of hardware that we're going to use, and the kind of material that we're going to use. Why do we spend the effort to do this? Because we don't want to make mistakes and put the wrong product on the right boat or the wrong kind of hardware on. So if we write it down, there's no reason to make a mistake. Underneath that, you'll see a blank space where we can draw a picture of whatever it is that we're going to do. We don't draw fancy pictures, we don't draw scale drawings or anything else. What it'll be is an outline of a boat with a product on it, so that we have a place to put measurements and so on, and a place to write notes as to what it is we're going to build for this customer. On the bottom left-hand side of the contract, you'll notice some spaces, and this is a place where we list the products that we're going to build and how much we're going to charge for them. Underneath that is a place where it says contract total, deposit 50%. Why 50%? Because we don't do any job without a 50% deposit up front. So we put this on the contract before we ever hand it to the customer the first time. On the right-hand side, you'll see a contract. It's only as good as the two people that are signing it, but 90% of the time it works fine. And when we get a contract completed after talking to a customer and selling him the products that he wants to buy, we as the salesman sign the bottom. Then we hand it to the customer and say, "Sir, please read the contract, review the things that we've put on there, and if you agree with it, please sign it, and we will accept a check for 50% so that we can schedule your job." Now, part of the reason that we have this printed in a three-part contract is this. Many times you drive out to make an estimate on a job, and you get there and the customer can't make a decision because he may have to talk to his wife or whoever's got the money. He doesn't always have it. So in order to save a trip back to the boat, we've driven out to the boat to make an estimate. He can't make a decision, so we take our contract and we take off the two front copies. And we hand these two copies to the customer and say, "Sir, when you decide that you're ready to have this job done, would you please sign the contract and send one signed contract and a copy of your contract and a check to us, and we will schedule your job." We do not schedule any jobs until we've got our 50% deposit. We end up with the cardboard copy, which has all the information necessary to do the job when we get the deposit in. Part of the reason that we've had this made the way it is, with this contract we can run our whole business. When we get done with the job, we end up with one paper copy and one cardboard copy. This simplifies our filing system because when we get the job completed, we write up an invoice to the customer, we get our money from him, and we put the copy of the invoice and the copy of the contract in one file and file it alphabetically by customer. The cardboard copy, which is the one that we've been working with, is filed by the kind of boat in another drawer. This way we've got a cross-reference between customer, kind of boat, so that in the future If that customer calls up, we can pull out his file and find out whether we made money or lost money. Or if another customer calls with the same kind of a boat, we can pull out of the boat file and see what we have to do to give an intelligent estimate on the same kind of a boat. So this is the reason for this estimate contract that we have. The other big reason for it is this. This is the cardboard copy, which has all the information on how to do the job, what's going into it, where it's going, and the whole works. On the back of this is a bill of material. The reason this was put on there, we make estimates to the best of our knowledge, but when we get out to really do the job, then is when we start checking out whether we made a good estimate or not. Because as we go down through the job, we take our bill of material, we write in under quantity every item that we put into that job, and we do it as we're doing the job. We have found over the years it takes 5 minutes out of an 8-hour day to fill in the quantities. When we get all done with the job, we put in our cost prices of all of the items that we used, we extend them out, we can total them up, and we can find out how much material we used. We can look at the bottom right-hand corner and find out the date, who did the job, how many hours they took. These are the things that will tell you whether you're making correct estimates or not, because you're checking your materials against what you estimated and your labor against what you estimated. I think this is enough said for the contract. If you want to copy it, be my guest. It's worked for the last 20 years. It works very well. Next, I'd like to go into the basics of estimating. And the basics of estimating are this. If you take material at cost and labor at cost and multiply them times a factor, you'll have a price to sell the job for. What I'm talking about when I say multiply by a factor is this, and I'm going to tell you what we use here in Florida at our shop. You pick a factor that you want that works in the trade area that you're working in, and you have to determine this by doing a check of where you're going to be working at. But the way we work ours is we take our material at cost, our labor at cost, and we multiply them by 2. What this is doing is giving us a 100% markup. This is where we get our overhead and our profit from. This is also one of the reasons why we ask for a 50% deposit up front, because if we get that and if we've made a correct estimate, we'll end up with our material and labor paid for before we get started, at least at cost. If we get cheated out of the rest, okay, we got cheated out of it, but at least we got that out of it. At this point, I'd like to put up here on the board the list of labor times that we have come up with over the years to use for fabrication times for fabricating canvas. You'll notice up here it says estimated hours of labor, and underneath it it says travel time additional. I want to make it very clear that this is fabrication time. It is not travel time, collection time, or sales times, or particular problems that have to be taken care of at the boat. So consequently, you'll have to add those in. This list came from a group of our peers that we have talked to over a period of years at seminars, and we have all kind of agreed that these are fair times that you could charge for and be able to get the job and not be overpriced or underpriced. Your quality shops are the ones that are using these times, and we've tried to cover everything that you would ever have to fabricate. So I think if you use this as a guide for estimating your labor, you'll make an intelligent estimate. At this point, we're going to pause just a moment and let you take a look at all of the times that are established on this estimated hours of labor. Now we're going to go to the point of measuring a boat for a full cover. You'll notice up here on the board that I have a drawing. You may want to copy it sometime to take out to make your estimates with. But many people make so many crazy measurements when they're measuring for a cover that they get everything all goofed up. So a few years ago, when I was still water skiing and then my back went to pot and I had to give up water skiing, I had an old water ski rope left. And because we use normally 3 different kinds of material for making covers, and we use anywhere from 36 to 46 to 60-inch goods. And we normally run our material across the boat to make a cover. This way we have a little more control over the shrink or the stretch of the product. So consequently, if we were running these strips across the boat, we would need to know how long to cut each strip to sew it together to make a blank to go out and pattern the boat. It can all be done mathematically, but there's a lot of chance for making a mistake. So, like I said, years ago when I quit water skiing, I took an old water ski rope and I started at the beginning with a red, white, and a blue ribbon. And then you'll notice that I put a white ribbon every 36 inches. And I put a red ribbon every 35 inches. We put a red ribbon every 45 inches. And we put a blue ribbon every 59 inches. Now, why did we do this? So that we could take this old ski rope and not even have to climb in the boat to get an intelligent estimate for the amount of material it was going to take to make that blank for that cover. So I just dropped this on the floor, got to bend over and pick it up. But to take the ski rope, stand at the bow of the boat, and just take and throw it over the length of the boat so that I can throw it clear to the stern. That way I can clamp these 3 ribbons at the rub rail at the bow, and I can drape it clear over to the rub rail at the stern of the boat. What I've accomplished when I get that done is I've got this rope, and this rope is going up over the windshield to the stern, and it's got all these ribbons on it. Now, I've drawn you 2 pictures here, one a side view of the boat and one a top view of the boat. So this is the same rope draped over the windshield. The reason this was done this way, I can stand on the ground, I can go to the first ribbon, and I can measure from the ribbon to the rub rail, add a couple of inches, and double it, and I have the length of the first piece of goods that it has to be cut to make this front piece. The reason we do this with a rope is these lengths change as they go back through the boat, the longest side, and that's what we're interested in, is which is the longest side of the piece that we have to measure. So you'll notice that as we're coming down through here, the longest side on this first piece is here, the longest side on the second piece is here, the longest side on the third piece is here, the longest side on the fourth piece is from the center of the windshield over the corner down to the rub rail. When we get to the 5th piece, the longest side is now here as opposed to here. So this is why we go, the 5th piece we'll measure from the ribbon to the rub rail, add a couple inches, double it, and so on, all the way to the back of the boat. By the time we get that done, we have the lengths of material that it would take to make a blank to make this cover, and they'll all be listed right here. The next step is how much border does it take to make this border for the cover, because as you notice up on this picture, we have a border that goes from the center of the stern around to the front and on down to the stern on the other side. We end up with a 6-inch finished border, and we finish it out of 9-inch widths. Why do we use that? Because if you take 36 or 46-inch goods or 60-inch goods, you can get 9-inch pieces out of most of them, and they'll finish 6. What we're doing is making a hem with a 2-inch turn with a 1/2-inch turn under, plus we use up a 1/2 inch when we sew it on and top sew it to the cover here at the rub rail. So the way we would get the amount of border required is measure from the stern around the boat to the bow, double it, and you have how many feet of border it's going to take to build that border for the boat. So then we would take whatever goods we were using, and I'm going to use an example today that if we were using 36-inch goods, you can get 4 9-inch cuts out of a width of material using 36. So let's just assume for a minute that we needed 39 feet of border. We would divide that by 4, and that would give us the number of feet of border or material it was going to take to cut for the border. So that we'd have 4 pieces to make the border. That would go down here. The next thing was we'd look at the boat and we'd say, okay, how am I going to support this cover? We're going to support it by putting support poles in, or bows. Some of you will use oak bows, some will use fiberglass bows. We happen to use tent poles with a grommet. But we do have to support that cover, because a cover is not necessarily made to be beautiful. It's made to keep the water out of the boat. And you have to prop it up in the middle. So this particular boat, I'd probably look at it and say, well, I need a support pole here. I might need one here and one here. Whatever it takes, that's the quantity of supports that we put down here. Now, in Ohio, when I was up north years ago, we snapped all of our covers to the boat. We still used a 6-inch finish border. When I came to Florida, we had to start using rope because people don't want a snap drill in the side of the boat in the saltwater environment. So we use rope. So the next thing is, how much rope is it going to take? Well, the quick and easy way to figure out the rope is this. You already know how much border it's going to take to go around that boat. So take that amount of border times 2.5, and that will give you enough rope for all of your border plus all of your tie downs to tie it down to the trailer. That's the amount that you'll put in here. The next thing is, we have to reinforce covers because they have a tendency to chafe on the different things on the boat. So we need to have something to reinforce that. So what we usually do is throw in a yard or two of scrap vinyl to sew on the underside for the reinforcement patches. And that's what we put in here. I'd probably, on this particular boat, maybe use 1.5 yards of scrap vinyl. All right, now on this is my working diagram to make an estimate. Over here on this side is the bill of material that came off of the back of our work order. And what we did, we took that bill of material, we put it in a copy machine, and we made some paper copies so that we could make an intelligent estimate. So what we do here is we take all of the dimensions that we took from our working drawing, and we list them in here. As in 36-inch material, we'd put in the quantity, we'd put in the number of tent poles, we'd put in the quantity of rope, we'd put in the quantity of vinyl that it would take to reinforce it. Then we would add all of those figures up. After we have put in our cost of material, we extend it out, add all of those figures up, and we have an intelligent estimate on the amount of material that's going to be required to build this cover. Down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we would take the estimated hours that it takes to build a cover, which you saw in a previous picture of the hours for fabrication time, add in travel time, add in any problems on the boat, multiply that times your cost of labor, add the two together, and you have a total cost of job of material and labor. And those are the things that, after they're added together, are multiplied by a factor to give an intelligent estimate. All right, continuing on how to make estimates, we're going to talk about a convertible top. And you'll notice that up here on the board I have an exploded view of a convertible top. And we use this to figure out the amount of materials that are going to go onto our bill of material. You'll notice over here that I have a drawing side view of a convertible top frame. So in order to know how much tubing to put on the bill of material, we would have to add up the main leg times 2 plus the width of the frame over here, then add up 2 leg lengths plus a width of a frame over here, and add those figures together, and that will give you the quantity of tubing that will be put over onto your bill of material under tubing. The next item that would have to go onto the bill of material would be the fittings to support the frames. So here, if we look at the frame configuration, we know that we've got to have 1, 2 times 2 INs for the other side of the boat. So we would go back over to the bill of material and we put 4 INs under the appropriate heading of the kind. Back over to the drawing, takes 1, 2 jaw slides. That would have to be put onto the bill of material. Looking down here, it would require 2 mounting brackets, 1 for each side of the boat. That will be put onto the bill of material. Now all of a sudden you have all of the hardware that it takes to get this framework onto the boat ready for material. Next item. If you look at this exploded view here, a convertible top usually has a forward half and an aft half, as we have them named. And they require the material. And we're going to be building this one out of 46-inch acrylic. We're going to be running the material across the boat, again, so that we have some control over the shrink or the stretch. How do we find out how much material it takes to do this top? If we take the dimension up here on the frame that we laid the frame out to, the overall width of the frame, if you take that dimension plus 12 inches for this side and 12 inches for this side, you have the amount of material that it would take to make the forward half of the top. If you take the same dimension for the aft half of the top, you would have the total amount of material that it would take to build this top. And that would be enough material to make your pockets and your flap and any necessary reinforcements that would be required out of it. That figure is what you would go over and put on your bill of material under 46-inch acrylic. Next thing, we've got hardware, we've got material. Now we're going to have to put some zippers on this in order to put side curtains and an aft curtain on, okay? How do we figure out what they are? Take the length of the top from the front to the back, and that will require a zipper, one zipper for your side curtains. That will be entered on your bill of material over under the zippers. You're going to require zippers also to attach your aft curtain to the top. That will be recorded on the bill of material. Now, what we normally do on tops, if they're very big tops, we put zippered pockets on them. So we would have to add the zippered pockets, zippers for the pockets, I'm sorry. So we would take the width of the top. It will take 2 zippers for here. So whatever half of that width is, that's the length of zipper it would take there. And it would take the same size for the secondary pocket. So now we got 3 zippers that have to be entered over on our bill of material. The last item that has to go onto this, which I forgot a minute ago, is that we have to put binding on all the way around this top, and we have to bind the pockets to put zippers in. The quick and easy way to figure out how much binding it's going to take is take the rectangular shape of the top times 2. In other words, length and width times 2 again would give you enough binding to cover that whole top. And that would be what would be brought over and put onto your bill of material under binding. All right, now that we've put the quantities of materials on the bill of material for the convertible top, what we'll do is put the cost of material behind them, extend them over, add up all of the materials necessary to build the top, go down on the bottom right corner and put in the estimated amount of labor to build the top, add the two together, multiply it by a factor, and we have an intelligent price for a convertible top. I'd like to stop just a minute and let you think for a couple of things. Camper tops and bimini tops are almost like a convertible top if you'll think about it. Why? A convertible top is 2 frames with material between them and hooked to a windshield. A bimini top is the same thing except that it's got another frame and no windshield. So consequently, it wouldn't be any more problem to add on the amount of framework that it's going to take for the bimini, plus the straps, plus the hardware for it, which includes buckles and snaps and webbing and so on. And you would have an intelligent price for a bimini by taking the labor cost that we figured a while ago. If you think about it a little bit further, a camper top is nothing more than another convertible top except for the fact that it's zipped to the back end of the convertible top. So all of the basic rules would apply to a camper top as far as figuring the amount of material that went into it and the amount of labor that's going to go into it. A little bit later we'll be talking about curtains, but for now we've covered a convertible top, camper top, and a bimini top so that you can make intelligent estimates. All right, now that we've explained to you how to make estimates on convertible tops, bimini tops, camper tops, now we need to get into the curtains, as in side curtains. Up here on the board I have a picture of a side curtain that's used on a convertible top, and the quick and easy way to figure out how much material it's going to take is this. If you take this shape, and this is the general shape of it, and if you convert that to a rectangular shape, then take those dimensions and see how they will fit onto 54-inch clear vinyl, you'll have the amount of clear vinyl that it's going to take to make 2 curtains. So whatever it would take for the first one, multiply it by 2, move it over onto your work order or your bill of material and log in the amount of clear vinyl it's going to take to build it. The next item that it's going to take is this. It's going to take binding all the way around it. And in order to figure facings and charge enough for it, the way we do is take that rectangular shape again that we figured for the glass and multiply that times 2, and then that figure by 2 again for the curtain on the other side of the boat, and that's the amount of binding that we'll charge for to build this pair of side curtains. The only other thing that you have to have for the side curtains would be the zipper to attach it to the top, across the top, and you'll get that information from measuring the length of the curtain and the length of the zipper to attach the curtain to the aft curtain, and you'll get that information by measuring the curtain again. Those are the zippers that would have to be transferred over to your bill of material. Now you have all the information necessary to build that style of curtain. I have a picture here of one other kind of a curtain, and it applies the same way. It's still on the bottom of the picture here. It's the shape of a curtain that would be used on a navy or a sport top. All of the rules that applied to the first one apply to this one. So that now you can take your bill of material, take all of the materials that were listed on it, cost them out, add them up, add in the labor, multiply it by a factor, and have an intelligent price for a pair of side curtains. All right, continuing on with our estimating program, let's talk about aft curtains for a minute. On the board here, you'll notice that I've got a drawing of a typical aft curtain, the shape of one that would be used on a navy or a sport top. There's another shape which I'll show you a little bit later. How do we figure out how much material it's going to take to build this aft curtain, okay? First, we have to know what material we're going to use, and just for purposes of a discussion, let's talk about the fact that we're going to use 46-inch umbrella, and it might require, by measuring from the top to the bottom of our pattern, it might require 2 pieces of material to get from one side of the boat to the other side. So what would we do? We'd take the longest dimension of the top half, and we'd take the longest dimension of the bottom half, add them together, and you have the amount of material that's going to be required to put onto your bill of material to charge for material. Next item. We have to put facings on this. We have to bind it all the way around. Now, normally we don't charge too much for our facings because they're cut out of our waist. But how do we figure the binding? Measure from the center all the way around to the center on the bottom edge, times 2. Then we add 50% more to that because we normally face where our zippers are going to go with flat binding. So 1.5 times the circumference plus 50 will give you the amount of binding necessary to put on your bill of material. Next item. We have to zip this to the top. Normally the zippers will start 1/2 inch each side of center and finish within 2 inches of the rub rail or the combing as it applies down here on the side of the boat. So what is the dimension from the center to this corner down here? That's the size zipper it's going to take to zip it on. So we're going to charge off 1 zipper because we use 1/2 of the zipper on this side and the other half on the other side. That's what we add on to the bill of material for our zippers. We've got one other thing to add to this. Normally on aft curtains, and you need to check with your state whether they require a window or not, we automatically put them in unless the customer says no, because we want to know who's going to hit us from behind. So we take and measure this aft curtain and decide what rectangular shaped window would look nice in there and still maintains the lines of the boat and make it appealing. Whatever that dimension is, we charge off that much of 54-inch clear vinyl on our bill of material, and now we have everything that it takes to build that aft curtain as far as the material. We've completed this aft curtain up here. I want to show you one more shape of another style aft curtain, and all of the same rules will apply. So down on the bottom of this picture, I have a picture of an aft curtain that would normally be used without the wings on the top. The only difference on this could be the fact that there would be one more zipper, which would be used on the sides here. But all of the rules applies to figuring the amount of material, the labor, to make an estimate. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a Dodger. How to estimate it. They're not hard to estimate if you use a system. You'll notice up here on the board I have an exploded view of a Dodger again, the same as I had for a convertible top. Now we got a few more things to figure than we've had on some of the previous things, but let's take them one step at a time. We'll go over here to the frame. We'll add up the main leg times 2 plus the width of the layout on the frame. Add up the 2 secondary legs plus the layout width on the frame. Add those figures together, and we have the amount of tubing that's going to be required to put on a bill of material to charge for tubing. Next item, fittings. Look at the side view of the drawing. We're going to need 1, 2 times 2 INs for the other side, so we need 4 INs. We need 1 jaw slide here, 1 for the other side, so it's going to require 2 jaw slides. It's going to require 2 mounting brackets, 1 for here and 1 for the other side. Those are the bits of hardware that we're going to add to the bill of material. Now we've accounted for all of the hardware that's going to go into this Dodger, okay? Next project, how much material is it going to take to build this Dodger? Here's the quick and easy way to figure it. If you take the overall length of the main frame, which includes the legs and the width, and that's this frame right here. If you take that overall length, that will be 1 length of material. That's the one that's going to make the forward panel right here, as I have already got on the drawing, and it's already named. The next item, how much material is it going to take for the aft panel, which is the one that goes between the 2 frames up here. If you take the overall length of the tubing required to make the secondary frame and charge for that amount of material, you'll have enough material to make this aft panel, or what some people call it the top panel, which is this one here. Next item, we have a starboard and port wing. How much material is it going to take to make those? Normally, if you'll figure roughly 4 feet of material for each wing, you'll have enough to make the 2 wings. If you take all of those quantities and add them together, you have an amount of material to add to your work order for the material it's going to take to build it. And there will be plenty of material in there to make your pockets and any facings that are required. Next item, most Dodgers will have as much glass as you can get from this side of the forward panel to this side. Why? Because people want to see what they're going to hit when they're out sailing. So we take and charge off enough glass to get from this point to this point, which is the same amount of material that we used for that particular panel. That takes care of the glass, and usually there's enough glass in that if the customer would want a porthole here on this side of the top panel and one on this side, there'd be enough glass there to make that. There'll also be enough glass in there to make the facings for the snaps, because when you're using acrylics for Dodgers, you have to face on the inside with some kind of a vinyl to support the snaps. There'll also be enough material in all of these cuts that we made here to get your facings to cover up that glass so that it doesn't show the mildew. You now have every bit of material that it's going to take to build this Dodger, with the exception of one thing. We got to have binding to go all the way around it, plus we bind and put zippers in all of our pockets. Why? It's easier for us to put the Dodger on the frame. It's easier for the customer to take it off and put it on. So the quick and easy way to figure out how much binding it's going to take to do this whole job is take the dimension of this wing, which is 48 inches, take the dimension of this forward panel, plus the dimension of this wing over here, and multiply that figure by 2, and you'll have plenty of binding to go all the way around the Dodger, plus bind the edges of your pockets before you sew your zippers in. Next item, how long are these pockets going to be? In order to cover yourself, and this will be a little bit too long, but in order to cover yourself and to cover some of the other things that go into this project, as in thread and snaps and so on, we just take the layout width of the Dodger frame and we charge off 2 zippers for that to put in the zippered pockets. Those are all the items that it takes to put onto your bill of material for a Dodger. Add in your labor, and you've got an intelligent estimate again for a Dodger.
The Marine Canvas Training Institute offers 1-week in-residence training seminars for basic boat canvas, advanced boat canvas, and boat upholstery, weekend training conferences, and daily one-on-one consulting. You may order other tapes in the Institute's video classroom series and the Marine Canvas Optimizer, its computer estimating program, by telephone or mail. Also available from the Institute are tool holsters, the Bend-Right Bender, the Bent Tent Pole Measuring Tool, Don Wedge's patented stainless steel snap dies, and other tools and equipment to help you run your business more effectively. For more information and a catalog, call, write, or fax the Marine Canvas Training Institute.